Hey guys, and welcome back to another Unfiltered Gamer Kickstarter board game review. Today's game up on the table is made by Spontaneously Combustible Games by Michael McFarland and Todd Jakubison. I know I might be not pronouncing that right. I apologize. The game is called Pests. Pests is for 2 to 6 players, about 45 to 75 minutes, and it's for ages 13 and up, roughly. In Pests, you play as an exterminator that specializes in removing a very specific type of pest. And you're also playing with your competitors in the exact same house, and they all have their own specific type of pests that they're trying to get rid of. Now, your objective in pests is to destroy all of your specific type of pest, while as making sure your opponents don't destroy theirs. Whoever destroys all of their pests, including trapping their queen and removing it, first wins the game. And that's how you play it. Let's go ahead and check it out. Alright guys, so this is the contents of the game Pests. There are 25 house tiles, as well as a starting tile for the balcony area, or the entry, four-way entry, I suppose you can call it. There's also 6 characters, as well as 6 character cards, and 2 dice. There are 12 standees, I think 2 in each bag, representing not only your character, but also the queen of your specific type of pests. Over 100 different types of pests, which are these little guys here. And 7 traps, 6 nest tokens, and 28 of these toolbox cards, which I'll explain in a minute. Alright, let me go ahead and set up the game, and then I'll explain it. Game as quickly as possible. In 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 players, it differs a little bit based on how many tiles people place turn by turn. Now the first thing you do is obviously you choose an exterminator, and each one of these guys has a specific ability that does something different in the game. You can go ahead and check that out when you get it. Also, you have to fill your toolbox, which is basically like drafting cards. And you put all the cards down in the deck of the toolbox deck, and you select one at a time the cards that you think would work best, or if you don't want to do the drafting portion, you can simply pass them out randomly. The next thing you do is build the house. Players take turns going back and forth based on the number of house tiles there are. You hand them out to different players. It's another kind of drafting mechanism where players placing their house tiles down until the third one gets placed. Then they can place their actual main spawning zone on the house. The red player places his red one, the green one places his green one, and you continue until all the tiles have been placed. Once all the tiles of the house have been placed, then you move on to infesting the house, and that's pretty simple. You place your queen in the main spawning room of your color, as well as a certain amount of pests in that room, and then pests spawn around that specific room until it fills up a total of 7 pests, I think. 3 in the main room and 4 all the way around. So if you have 4 different spaces connected, each room gets a pest. And if you have 3, 2 rooms get 1, and 1 room gets 2. And it's based on a certain system as far as going clockwise, which I'll explain a little bit later. That's basically what I did. Now let me show you a basic idea of how a turn works. Okay, so we have the game set up, and both exterminators are in their specific tiles they need to be in at the beginning of the house, as well as their corresponding colored queens are here. And they have the queens dropping their little pest tokens. There should be a total of 7, 3 in the main room and 1 on each adjacent tile. If there's only 3 adjacent or 2 adjacent, then it kind of splits up the pests evenly. And on a player's turn, the first player to go is the player who placed their tile first, the house tile first. And they actually have to do the queen's turn on their turn. And each player is going to spawn and move their queen a certain amount of spaces on their turn. The first turn of the game, the queen gets to take 2 turns. So basically how you do that is you take this die here, and it's the queen die, and you roll it, and they do different things. One is to populate, or up, down, left, and right. She can summon, and they work very simply. If the queen goes up, she goes up. If the queen goes down, down, left, and right, so on and so forth. The summon lets her bring all of her pests 1 room closer to her, and the populate lets her spawn pests outside of her main location, so she'd spawn one in every single room next to her. Also, whenever the queen moves, she spawns a pest. So if she were to move over here, she would spawn one additional pest for moving in that location. And she kind of runs around the room as you're trying to catch her. After the queen takes her turn, she's moving twice on the first turn, but once every time else, then the players are going to take their turns. Each player gets a free movement as well as 2 action points to use. And on their turn, they get to either move, exterminate pests, drop traps, and these are the little traps right here. Go ahead and drop them, and it actually will ensnare pests. Empty the trap, drag a trap with them somewhere, destroy an opponent's trap, unseal an opponent's nest, place a toolbox, play a toolbox card, or buy a toolbox card. And they all have a different amount of points. And when they're trying to exterminate pests, they'll use this one little exterminator die, and they'll roll to see how many pests get destroyed in their room, so that would be 4. Now, in order to capture the queen, she has to actually be in a trap. And in order for the game to end, there has to be no pests left, and the queen has to be trapped, as well as the nest sealed in each player's specific room. And if the players manage to do all that while avoiding their opponents, then they will win the game. Okay, so now that you understand the basics of the game and how it's played, let's talk about these toolbox cards and how you can actually draft them one at a time per player or just get them randomly and what they do. Now, the pest card here that we have, the toolbox card, says Pests Hibernate. The queen doesn't roll this turn. In fact, she does nothing, and you get an extra action on your turn. You can play this for an action point, as well as all the rest of these cards. Like Pest Surge, where 5 pests immediately emerge from a selected nest, meaning your opponents if you want, making him have to catch or destroy all that many pests. You can Sabotage Tools, which lets you discard cards from your opponent's hand, or take an offensive toolbox card from the discard pile. And there's tons and tons and tons of different little cards here that you can use for the toolbox. Now remember, taking actions to do this can benefit you in the long run, but will hurt you in the meantime, because more pests are going to spawn from your queen as you're drawing these cards. Usually you're going to need all of those actions to remove all the different pests, as well as trapping that queen and removing her, while your opponents are trying to sabotage you and complete the same goal as well. On a final note for mechanics, I didn't explain at the beginning of the game how you have to have doors connected with other doors. It might seem obvious, but for some it's not. And so when you're placing these door tiles down, they have to be aligned together, and if they're not, it's an invalid space, as well as remembering to have your specific rooms after the third room tile that you've placed. You can't place it before that. Finally, when players or these queens move outside of the house, which can happen and does, they're going to actually go in a specific order as to what is their next spawning location. And it's a kind of a tricky system that involves north, south, east, west, and basically you have to go clockwise. So you'll determine which is the closest path, and these two being the exact same in distance. However, because of the ruling, it's going to go clockwise, so it would go to this path first, basically like this. So it would never go up, it would only go clockwise. That being said, that's the main mechanics of the game, and that's how you play pests. So the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to pests is the theme and the mechanics of the game. Now the theme is pretty simple. You're a bunch of different exterminators, and you have your own specialty as to which type of pests you destroy, and they all have all these different fun little names. And you're trying to get rid of all of your pests, along with trapping the queen, removing her, sealing up the nest in that nest room that's specifically yours, as well as the theme corresponding to the mechanics, because you got a lot of drafting mechanics. You got the house that you're drafting, which plays a long way in replayability, as well as the card or the toolbox drafting. And they really all work together, because it makes you feel like every time you're playing a game, you're going into a new house to fight these pests, as well as your queen. So you're never playing the exact same game. And the theme really works because it's something very, very new and very original. I've never heard of a game where you're actually going around trying to exterminate pests. And it works. It works really well, and it's really fun. In fact, I played 3, 4, and 5 players, and I enjoyed each and every single type of play. And I think the game works better with more players because it involves more of a take that, which, speaking of which, this game has a lot of take that. So you have your drafting, you have your collecting, because you're getting rid of these pests technically, or exterminating these pests, as well as playing cards on your opponents, unsealing their traps, unsealing their little nests, so that they're always having trouble with trying to achieve their own goal, because you're also trying to achieve yours. And if you're actually not close enough to achieving your victory, but you know your opponent is, you might be ganging up on the person who's super close. Also, another thing to note is the Queen. Now, the Queen is kind of a random, crazy little thing. Sometimes it moves, sometimes it doesn't. You don't know where it's going to move, when it's going to move, and it can affect you in tremendous ways. A few games I had played, I was so close to winning, and she rolled that one specific location where I just didn't need her to be, and I lost by 1 action point. So that could be a negative, I suppose, if you look into the fact that, yes, there is some randomness to the game. But I think overall, the strategy that is involved in it, as well as the cards you can choose for drafting, which makes up for the fact that you're not just drawing cards when you're going throughout the game, but you actually get to choose any of the cards in the entire deck to play with, makes the game really work, and really work well. I said before, the game's very replayable. It's extremely replayable. It's one of the most replayable games ever because everything is drafted for the most part. You got your characters who are drafted or chosen, I suppose you can say, and your tiles and your toolbox cards, and the strategy all fits with it. Overall, PES is an excellent game, and I definitely recommend it to those people who like a light take that game with also a bunch of extra mechanics that involve drafting. And that's pretty much what I think about PES. Thanks for watching another Unfiltered Gamer Kickstarter board game review on the game PES by Spontaneous Combustible Games. If you like this video and you want to see more, go ahead and check out the rest of our videos here on YouTube, or check out our website, unfilteredgamer.com. We just got a revamp, so everything there is on the first page, much easier to see, as well as our giveaways, our Kickstarter list, and our blogs. Don't forget to also go to the Giveaway Geek and everythingboardgames.com to check out all their great content. Thank you guys for watching, and once again, I'll see you next time.